I'm Joao Porto de Albuquerque. I'm a professor in urban analytics at the University of Glasgow and deputy director of the Urban Big Data Center. So, having recently moved to Glasgow at Urban Studies in the School of Social and Political Sciences, I'd like to share with you some thoughts around participatory urban analytics as we discuss towards Urban Analytics 2.0. How can city engagement help us address inequalities in cities and data? And the core of my talk comes from this motivation to, stimulate us to think of social, spatial, urban inequalities as a strong and perhaps a key challenge for urban analytics. Um, and coming from the fact that they are strongly associated, as we all know, to data inequalities and to data qualities as well. And this reflects in the spatial data heterogeneity in the data. So to give a plastic example, I'll take the city of Sao Paulo, and that we've been doing some research and show some results of a recent paper we published in IJGIS, which you can find the link in the bottom. And you see in the right hand and the left hand side, you see a picture which became perhaps emblematic of urban inequalities. Two very contrasting realities. On the left-hand side, a slum, a favela Paraisópolis, and on the right-hand side, a very affluent neighborhood of Morumbi and a very luxurious building. The question is really, how does this translate into the quality of the data and what implications does it have when we use that data? So we did an investigation of social media, and we used the Twitter data, geo-referenced Twitter data for that, in partnership with the National Early Warning Center in Brazil and Disaster Monitoring Center. And we are interested to detect heavy rainfall patterns so that we could improve early warning and flood forecasting. And interestingly, uh, uh, we saw that these patterns are very strongly related to the existing inequalities. And I'll show you two maps, which I think show this very strongly. So on the left-hand side, we have a choropleth in the blue colors with the population or the income distribution, sorry. And you see that income is very concentrated in the city center, Sao Paulo. It's a very radial city with income and wealth being in the city center, and then, less affluent areas as you move towards the periphery. And then when you have the population on the right-hand side as a control, the pattern is much less clear in that sense. But interestingly is the red dots. We calculated a cross correlation between a time series derivated from social media and a time series generated from radar to capture rainfall. So we're really interested when you see rainfall and flooding, as a proxy for flooding, heavy rainfall, do people tweet more when there is rainfall? And then if we use this as an indicator in flood early warning systems, can we trust this really? And what we can see here is very striking. The left-hand side map shows that there is a coincidence of larger bubbles with areas which are darker in blue, which means basically that the quality of the signal that we extract or the cross correlation between social media and rainfall is much stronger in high income areas and much weaker in low income areas, which perhaps expected. But I think, it shows very clearly that if you're really looking into using, for example, social media to detect heavy rainfall and flooding in Sao Paulo, you might be capturing the rainfall of the rich, but not the rainfall of the poor. And that is perhaps something that we have to really be careful when we look at urban analytics. And based on this, we have been looking at different ways of addressing inequalities that go beyond using and perhaps just kind of like recycling data sources to perhaps expanding our view of analytics to also consider generation and engagement in order to counter these types of tendencies. And one of the results in the waterproofing data was that we included a lot of more methods and asked the question really, can urban analytics be an opportunity as much as urban knowledge production, as we all kind of like are interested in, but also for empowering citizens in marginalized areas, for example, to produce data through participatory mapping, to collaborative risk perception mapping, to citizen science of kids in schools measuring rainfall with rainfall gauges, producing memories. So that was our idea, and we kind of like use this, and it's very interesting because very now this week really we have a mobile app being launched, and the data that is being produced by communities in Brazil is being feeding into at the National Early Warning Center, and it's launching this campaign in 20 schools and 10 civil protection agencies across the country, really. So it's very satisfying to see that going into impact. And that is how I conclude in my 5 minutes, leaving you with these thoughts that we are launching in UBDC, this area of urban sustainability and participation as a new theme, and really looking at addressing urban inequalities, as a core concern, and then using participatory methods together with analytics. I think we can get there. So thank you very much for listening. Please check out our links and let's engage in conversation. I would love to talk more about this. Thank you.